What exactly is a folklore PhD? My name is Kelly MacCath-Moran. I do have a folklore PhD, and I'm presently working on a book titled The Storyteller's Guide to Folklore. I wrote an article with fellow scholar and philologist Joseph Hopkins a couple of years ago called Getting Started in Folklore Studies, which I will link to in the comments, that talked about sort of folklore bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, various resources available for people who are interested and sort of getting their feet wet with folklore studies. But I thought I'd take a different approach here and tell you what went into my PhD, so you know what I studied, what I can potentially teach you, what I learned, that sort of thing. I studied at Memorial University of Newfoundland and Labrador in a folklore department that offered a folklore PhD, and there are only 3 of those in North America. There's mine. There's one in Quebec at Laval, which is taught in French. And then there's the home of the American Folklore Society and the Journal of American Folklore at Indiana University in the States. And what distinguishes these programs from others that might teach folklore bachelor's degrees or folklore master's degrees or hybrid degrees in folklore and another discipline like English literature is that they're taught by a robust faculty of many different kinds of folklorists with a wide variety of interests. And that is what I had the privilege of studying when I was a folklore student. So I studied, in addition to, of course, the fundamentals of the discipline, the history of the discipline, I studied public folklore. I studied global and local folklore. I studied genre. I had the privilege of studying legend and oral history with one of the foremost legend scholars in the world, Dr. Paul Smith, who is now retired. I studied folklore of belief with Dr. Maria Lesev, who is a Ukrainian scholar of Ukrainian paganism and presently working on folklore of the war in Ukraine. So very serious work she's doing. I studied a little bit of ethnomusicology because my department also offers an ethnomusicology degree, a PhD. And in short, I had this awesome opportunity to just stretch my wings and decide what I liked. And eventually I specialized in belief and performance theory and narrative when I went into my field work, and that's something else I want to talk to you about. So we began our folklore master's degrees and PhDs, my cohort did, in field school. So they took us out to Cupid's, Newfoundland, and the community welcomed us and gave us the opportunity to interview lots of folks who were doing boat building and fiber art and all sorts of folklore in the community. We came in and we learned how to conduct ethnographic interviews among these really great people in this really great place. We learned the technical aspects of collecting folklore, like how to get a great sound recording and how to get a great video recording. We learned how to file those with archives and put any sort of special requests, like don't release this part of the interview until grandma dies because this is super sensitive and we don't want it to affect her as a living person. We learned about, of course, right alongside that, the ethics of ethnographic interviewing and how to approach different kinds of people. This was super neat. You know, the gatekeepers who sort of meet you at the door and want to be the first to be interviewed and tell you who you ought to be interviewing. And then you've got your local characters who provide a lot of vibrant energy to a community, and they're unique and colorful. And also the shy folks who are just sort of getting on with doing the cool thing, and you've got to go find them and find out what they're about and find out what their contribution is to intangible cultural heritage in a community or a group. So we learned all about that, and then after all of my coursework, I took it back out into the field when I studied in Newfoundland and in Toronto, in the field, in field research among vegan animal rights activists. And I looked at ethical belief of veganism and performance of ethical belief in street protests and slaughterhouse vigils and so forth. So those were the elements of my PhD. The other thing I want to mention really super quickly is my amazing library and archive. Of course, if you're getting a PhD in a discipline, you need a really great library, and the QE2 library at Memorial is fantastic. They subscribed to all the right folklore journals. They had a robust folklore collection. Herbert Halpert, who was a really foundational folklorist in our department, left his papers to the library, so we had the opportunity to explore and utilize the Herbert Halpert collection. And we also had the Memorial University of Newfoundland and Labrador Folklore and Language Archive, that's a mouthful, housed in the department. And the mandate of that archive is Newfoundland. So we could go into the archive, we could look into archival resources, include those in our papers. And those of us who were graduate students had the privilege of being able to request the keys and lock ourselves in at night if we were working on a paper. So I spent quite a few nights in the archive researching folklore papers for my PhD coursework. So that's what my folklore degree looks like. It looks like early field school. It looks like a robust and wide variety of folklore coursework. It looks like participant observation, research, and of course along the way there was my comprehensive exam and my dissertation and all of that. But that's what I know, and that's what I can teach you, and that's the sort of thing that you will find in the Storyteller's Guide to Folklore when it's finished. Again, I'm Dr. Kelly MacCath-Moran. It was great talking to you today. I'm at folkloreinfiction.com, and I'll talk to you again some other time. Cheers.